Today's Entre Nous segment is focusing on the ever-important societal question of the right to die. For more on this, I'm joined by our Solange Mougin. Solange, this question of assisted suicide or euthanasia is a very highly divisive issue around the world, and of course here in France as well.
Yeah, it is. It is incredibly personal. It is something that most of us do not want to think about until or unless we have to. But we're talking about this today, because this afternoon could mark a milestone in France in regard to assisted dying measures here. The French National Assembly is slated to finally vote on two bills today. The first is on palliative care and the need to develop and boost it in France. It's widely supported across political lines here and is expected to pass quite easily. The other bill on assisted dying is a lot more sensitive, of course, and more complicated, and has been debated in the National Assembly for weeks. So I'm going to take you through what has been decided, why this has been so long in coming, and then we'll look at what other nations in the world have decided when it comes to euthanasia and assisted suicide. First, France and the political side of this. If both bills pass today, they will need to be finalized by the Conservative Senate this fall. And if that does not happen, President Macron is considering putting the issue up for referendum, which would likely pass, as 92% of French people, and this is from an IFOP poll from last year, they say they are in favor of such measures if a dying patient wants them. Most French people feel that they should have this right.
I asked myself if I were feeling better, if I were in less pain, would I want to continue? The answer is no. For me, it's no. So I asked myself, because it's scary to die after all. It's called freedom of choice. To stop.
Now, this isn't to say that there aren't detractors from this point of view. The French Prime Minister is actually one of them. He says he is against this measure. French bishops are also issuing a warning. They've also issued a warning against this legislation, saying it's a slippery slope, preferring the current system under the 2016 Claes-Leonetti law, which allows patients to be put in a sleeping state until they die. But critics say that it doesn't suffice and it doesn't go far enough, and France as a society largely wants this, even if setting up the medical framework and safeguards is tricky.
So what exactly are the criteria that have been decided upon so far?
Well, debate on the issue started on May 16th and ran until this past Saturday, and Parliament decided on 5 criteria that all of them must be met to be able to end one's life or to have someone help you do it. The first criteria is you must be 18 and over. Unlike in Belgium, dying children and teens with incurable painful illnesses will not be allowed to do this. The second criteria is you must be a French national or reside for a long period of time in France. This is to avoid medical tourism and also to protect foreigners who who have lived here for a long period of time. The third criteria is having a grave and incurable ailment that is life-threatening and in an advanced or terminal stage. The fourth criteria is constant physical or psychological suffering that does not respond to treatment or when treatment has been refused. The bill also states, though, that psychological suffering in and of itself does not make you eligible for this, just only alone. And the final criteria, number 5, is the ability to, quote, manifest a patient's will freely and in an informed state. So people with Alzheimer's, for example, do not fit the criteria here.
And then who and how would administer this lethal dose, which is also hotly debated? I mean, where have they landed on that?
Well, once the request is granted by a patient's doctor who has the obligation of consulting with other specialists treating the patient, well, this group of doctors gives the go-ahead, and then the dose is meant to be self-administered. This was a hot issue, with only cases where the patient is not physically able to self-administer can a doctor administer the lethal drugs. They have yet to be decided what they are. Now, a clause has been added to the bill that is similar to the ones in France regarding abortion. Doctors can refuse to help patients with this because of their own personal beliefs, but they cannot impede or misinform or not inform patients that this is an option for them. If they do that, they could actually go to prison and be fined. These clauses de conscience and délits d'entrave, which is what they're called in French, were also debated at length in Parliament.
So, Solange, what's the situation like in other countries outside of France?
Well, Well, the World Federation of Right to Die Societies, which is made up of 45 different associations across 25 countries, has this interesting map that you see there. It breaks down how nations are increasingly legislating on this. You have, of course, the Netherlands, which in 2001 was the first country to legalize euthanasia. But since then, a number of nations have also created legal frameworks for euthanasia and or assisted suicide, such as Belgium, Canada, Colombia, Spain, and also a handful of U.S. states. Comparing their laws is quite difficult because there are so many very different specific criteria. But if we have to create common threads here, these laws stipulate there be unbearable suffering, an incurable condition, and a patient's discernment at some point. So France is, like a number of other nations that are in the process of taking steps to allow assisted dying or already have done so, currently asking these hard questions of how to create a safe and legal way to allow the dying to choose or not, some countries don't want it, whether they are allowed to die. And France, if the bill passes, will be the 8th nation in the EU to do so.
All right, Solange, thanks so much for that. It is truly a sensitive topic that's being debated and voted on today in the National Parliament. Thank you so much.